In this tutorial, I am going to show you how to make this dragon tail shawl. We make increases in one side and we make those stairs on the other side. And increasing in one side and making some decreases on the other side, you get this shape of dragon tail. And you can make it as big as you need. Let's go with a step by step. To make this size, I used three balls of yarn of Delight. The recommended needle is 3.5 millimeters, but I used a 4 millimeters needle. You can use straight needles or circular needles. We have to cast on 3 stitches. Cast on 3 stitches. You can use the way to cast on that you prefer. And now we have to work the first row. We have to work the garter stitch in all the shawl. The garter stitch, remember, knitting all the stitches. Row number 1, we have to knit 3 stitches. Knit 3 stitches. Row number 2. Here we have to start making increases. We will make increases always on the even rows. We have to knit to 1 stitch before the end, knit to 1 stitch before the end, and once we are 1 stitch before the end, we have to yarn over and knit the last stitch. Row number 3, we have to take the edge stitch. We have to knit the yarn over, taking the back loop. Knit the yarn over, taking the back loop. And knit to the end of the row. Row number 4, we are in an even row, so we have to knit. We have to take the edge stitch and knit all the stitches to 1 stitch before the end. Knit all the stitches to 1 stitch before the end. Yarn over before the last stitch and knit the last stitch. This is what we have to repeat in all the even rows. Knit to 1 stitch before the end, yarn over and knit the last stitch. We have now 5 stitches on the needle. Row number 5. This is an odd row, so we have to knit. So we have to take the edge stitch, knit the yarn over, taking the back loop, and knit to the end of the row. We are on an even row, so we have to make 1 increase between the 2 last stitches. So take the edge stitch, knit to the to one stitch before the end, yarn over and knit the last stitch. And now we have 6 stitches because we made one increase. On the next row we have to take the edge stitch, knit the yarn over taking the back loop and knit to the end. Remember that this is what we have to repeat in all the odd rows. We have to repeat the same to have at the end of the odd row 10 stitches. We have to repeat the same to have 10 stitches and finishing with the odd row. Here we have the 10 stitches, and how you can know if you are in an odd or in an even row. If you have a straight edge on the right side and the increases on the left side, you are in an even row. Now we start with the decreases. Now I'm going to show you how to make the decreases, and later I will explain you how to know how many decreases you have to make. We start now with 3 decreases. We have to bind off 3 stitches. Remember how to bind off. We have to take the edge stitch, knit the next stitch, pass the first stitch over the second stitch, we bind off 1 stitch, repeat the same, and repeat the same one more time. We have to bind off 3 stitches. As we are in an even row, we have to knit to 1 stitch before the end, yarn over and knit the last stitch. Here you can see the stitches and this peak that we made binding off stitches, and now we have to work on the stitches that we have on the needle. We are on the odd row, so we have to take the edge stitch, knit the yarn over taking the back loop and knit to the end of the row. We are on an even row. We don't have to make decreases now, we only have to make the increase at the end of the row. Remember, knit all the stitches to 1 stitch before the end, yarn over and knit the last stitch. We continue making increases on the even rows to have 12 rows without decreases, only increases on the even row. And now we are on the even row again, and we have to make now decreases one more time. And how to know how many stitches we have to bind off? We had to bind off on the previous peak 3 stitches. Now we have to bind off 4 stitches. We have to bind off 1 more stitch that we had to bind off on the previous peak. So we have to bind off 4 stitches. We have to knit to 1 stitch before the end because we are on an even row. Yarn over and knit the last stitch. this is the first row of the next stair. On the previous stair we made 12 rows. Now we have to make 14 rows. We have to increase 2 rows on each stair that we make. I'm going to write here some stairs. Stair number 2, we have to knit 12 rows and we have to bind off 4 stitches. Stair number 3, we have to knit 14 rows and bind off 5 stitches. Stair number 4, we have to knit 16 rows and bind off 6 stitches. Stair number 5, we have to knit 18 rows and bind off 7 stitches. Stair number 6, we have to knit 20 rows and bind off 8 stitches. And making more increases than decreases, you get the stair bigger and more stitches on each row. Remember how to know if you are in an even or in a even or odd row. If you have the stairs on the right side and the increases on the left side, you are in a even row. And if you have the stairs on the left side and the increases on the right side, you are in an odd row. I made the shawl to finish the 3 balls of yarn, but remember that you can make the shawl with the size that you prefer. Once we finished the last stair, we have to bind off all the stitches that we have on the needle.